Hey guys, welcome back. I'm super excited. I was thinking, what's the next best thing to teach you guys? How do we bring all of these years of experience to make it digestible for you and where you can utilize it? And, the biggest myth I think that I have run up against, at least in this work, is it's too complicated. I don't have the level of training that a chiropractor does or a physical therapist does, even a massage therapist does. And so I'm a little bit helpless, right? They're the experts, I'm not, so I just go to them. But really, what I've discovered, my biggest and most hopeful discovery in this work is, oh my gosh, this is actually simple and I can do it, and I am doing it. So I asked Ryan, why don't we just make a video on what is the blueprint? And he shared with me that there's really only 3 parts. You guys, there's only 3 parts to you successfully getting yourselves out of chronic pain, retraining your nervous system to self-adjust, and maintaining those results for a lifetime on your own. So that's what we wanted to come today. I'm Mikal. I'm your functional medicine and neuro-emotional healing expert. And this is Ryan, who's you could say so many things, but you're our body mechanics expert, Ryan, and you're teaching us everything we need to know about how to assess our actual structure and alignment and body problems, how to correct them, and how to really do that for the long term so that it's, you're investing in a permanent solution, not continuing to require band-aids over and over and over and over. So you've got about 25, 30 years of experience between the two of us, and we're so excited to start this Facebook group to start teaching all of you. So Ryan, why don't you just take it away? What the heck is the blueprint?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's like you said, from a macro perspective, it is quite simple. I think people really get in their head about, it's the human body, right? It is a very incredibly complex thing. However, from a movement standpoint, as you said, we've got all this experience between the two of us. You get to a point to where you start to really be able to encapsulate everything into kind of categories, and you realize, hey, if I address it in this step, and this step, you're going to be eradicating a majority of chronic issues that most people are going to be dealing with, especially when you look at us as a society. What are we most subject to, right? These kind of poor postural patterns as a result, again, of sitting for long periods of time, slouching, overall just sedentary lifestyle. So again, this is going to address a majority of those. Now, if we start going beyond the scope of these 3 steps, that's when we start getting into, just as you would have to get into, advanced medicine, right? Some things are working for a majority of the population, but then there's that small sliver of the population where it's like, okay, advanced medicine time. Does this work? Do we go Ayurvedic? What do we do? You know what I mean? So
That's so good. And Ryan, just to interrupt you for a minute, because I know that's what we address. We teach people this is the pain-free blueprint, but each person has a blueprint. And so finding those unique root causes and addressing those are important. So maybe I'll just add a 4th thing that just says, address your personal root causes and patterns, and also goals. Like, my husband does not have a sedentary lifestyle because of his job. He is destroying his body as a tradesman. He does painting and plastering and staining, and he's outside and he's on ladders and he's, holding these heavy things like this over his head. I mean, it's like it destroys his body. And so for him, what functional would look like and what his blueprint would tell him to do is to actually counteract the stuff that he's doing at work, so that he can maintain balance while he's doing something very dysfunctional. In the olden days, we didn't paint like this with repetitive movement. So anyway, I just wanted to add, of course, you've got to address all your own personal patterns, but really the overall blueprint is simple. So anyway, sorry, take it away. I just wanted
No, that's great. I'm so happy you brought that up. And we talked about in the previous recording that everybody has their own function, right? So for your husband, his daily function is doing what some people would consider dysfunctional movement, right? And I painted for 4 years. So it's very unilateral. Here I am, same motion, very repetitive over and over again, lots of neck and shoulder problems. But again, the more I, delve down the rabbit hole of like how to address those soft tissue problems and how to create balance in my body, it went away with time and persistence. So the way we break it down in the blueprint is starting with number one, as you can see there's soft tissue release and joint mobilization. So what we're really trying to do is just reverse all of the chronic holding patterns that we've gotten into. So again, let's just take slouching for an example, because everybody can relate to it, right? If we get into that poor postural position, we're going to see a shortening of those tissues. And as we've talked about in the previous recording, tensegrity, we want good equal tension. But if I need to create, say, strength in the retractor muscles, or the antagonist groups is what they're called, I need to first release these tissues so I don't have all this tension pulling me here, so that way I can create more tone in the antagonistic groups. As you can imagine, again, if I'm stuck in the slouch position, I get what's called chronic medial rotation in the shoulder. So now the joint, the glenohumeral joint in the shoulder, becomes chronically locked into this kind of medial position. So now I need to use joint mobilization to increase those ranges of motion and to try and kind of encourage more hydration and all the other things that come with improving joint range of motion, right? So that's where we start. We break all that down. We kind of regain some of that motion that we've lost. And then we get into postural retraining, because as we've talked about in previous recordings.
And can I pause?
Yep.
Because just as you're talking, it makes so much sense. And you guys, we have started posting videos for you guys in the group on soft tissue release and on these principles. But you know what? Chiropractic doesn't address this. They skip this. You can't skip this. This is the first step. And, as somebody who's newer to this, I was like, oh, well, how do you know that applies to me? Right? But it's like, no, all people, all humans who are having body problems have soft tissue problems. You have to start here and have this system be healthy for you to retrain, for you to correct, for you to hold adjustments, for you to strengthen. And so even massage, like that's my next thing. Well, fine, I'll go get a soft tissue massage, right? Or a deep tissue massage. Well, you're going to do that every day. You're constantly feeding your nervous system information. You're constantly training and giving feedback to your nervous system and your tissues and your joints and how that all works together. So there's no Band-Aid you can put for bad training. You can't, it's like your 3-year-old, if you let them run rampant and go crazy and throw fits all the time at home and have no discipline and feed them sugar, nothing but sugar all the time, you can't expect them to behave that one time you go to the grocery store, and so to me, it's the same with your nervous system. And I just want to point to, Ryan has done this for so many years. This is applicable to everybody, and it's missed by the physical therapist. It's missed by the massage therapist. It's missed by the chiropractors. The only way you can actually get the system fully up and running is if you take ownership in doing it yourself and in training that 3-year-old nervous system how to behave and how to regulate themselves, how your nervous system regulates itself. And then you're not going to have all these crazy, weird problems and pain. It seems so simple, but it is. Anyway, Ryan, I don't know if you want to add to that, but I just wanted to jump in real quick. And yoga doesn't do this. Stretching doesn't do it. Your personal trainer and, all of your gym memberships and such doesn't do it. You have to do this yourself. You have to dive in and work with your soft tissues and mobilize your joints.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, taking a chiropractor, I don't want to say a chiropractor because that kind of makes a generalization. I'm sure there's chiropractors out there who do take these into consideration, but from a general standpoint, what a chiropractic tends to do is skip 1 and 2 here, steps 1 and 2, which is the soft tissue release and the kind of the postural retraining or the neural feedback, right? The retraining of the neuromuscular system. And instead they go right to the skeletal system. They go into rapid adjustment work and they skip over those first two things that created the problem in the first place. So that's, how we've broken this down in the blueprint. It's first soft tissue release, restore motion. Then we get into postural retraining, where it's the neural feedback. So now we're teaching the body, this is the new normal. And we can do that because we've released all of the tensions that have been keeping you from being able to get efficiently into the new normal. And then what we do is, now that we've gotten that, and we've, foot pronation has been eliminated, good postural positioning is now becoming a new kind of unconscious pattern for you. Then we start to clean up the gait cycle, because that's what we're optimized to do from a human design as bipedal organisms, is walk, run, and throw things. So that is, that contralateral gait cycle, the left arm swinging is the right into extension is the right leg into extension, and vice versa, creating this kind of pendulous movement pattern. So we go into improving that, right, which is going to, in a broad sense, really address a lot of dysfunctional movement, because now we have, we've basically cleaned up the gait cycle, which again is our human design. And then, as you said there, addressing, once you get to that point, and if you are still dealing with a little, something that's bothering you, then you kind of take a step back and you say, okay, well, what am I doing every single day through self-assessment? Which I love that you're doing the journaling, because we encourage people to journal, right? Is what am I doing every single day that could be contributing this problem, right? Because now you're drawing awareness to something that you otherwise weren't aware of. So for example, now they have these, apps or these functions on your computer that will show you, this is how long you've been on your computer all week. You've put in, and again, that's drawing awareness. And most people are like, oh my God, I spent 8 hours on the computer. They didn't even realize they were doing that. So what we're doing is we're drawing our attention to, oh, you know what? Let's say for your husband, it's like, oh, yeah, okay. So when I do this with a roller pole, right? No wonder. Okay. So when I do this position, yeah, my shoulder's hurting, but yeah, because I'm doing this a couple thousand times a day, right? So now all of a sudden, oh, okay, well, I'm going to do a little more work here, restore a little mobility here. And then before you know it, you're not dealing with those chronic issues.
Beautiful. And I love two things that you said. You said unconscious. So there's a big myth. I was really afraid to take this on for myself for a long time. I don't have the time. It's going to be so much work, blah, 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 blah. And in the meantime, right, I'm not getting away with not doing it. I'm pretending I'm getting away with it until I have this massive flare up. So I love that it becomes unconscious to you. It's like, gosh, that's such a good investment, because I don't have to fight my way there the whole time. It becomes just an unconscious, normal thing, like brushing my teeth. Second thing, which was a big aha for me too. Oh yeah, I have been asking my body workers for like years, almost every time I go, well, why is this happening? What am I doing? Can you tell me why this is showing up? What are the kinds of things, so that I cannot do this again? This is tedious. This is painful. And then it's painful to get it worked on. And then it's painful for it to still be a problem. And I always got pretty just pat answers or vague answers. And so anyway, now I'm able to identify what I'm doing, and it makes perfect sense to me, but I've been asking that question for, I don't know, 20 years, probably. I've had problems a long time. And nobody ever told me why. And that's part of our functional model, Ryan. You know this. You got to find the root cause. And there could be many layers of root causes. And the chiropractors stop, like you said, they miss stuff, but they also stop at like the first root cause. Well, the nerves are a problem because the bones are out. Well, what's pulling the bones out? Well, what's pulling the muscles out? Well, what's pulling the nervous system, to not maintain proper functioning and alignment. So you got to find the deepest root cause for you to actually have permanent results. And if you guys aren't well yet, if you guys still have pain, there are root causes that you haven't addressed. And they're happening right now. It's not the injury that happened a year ago. There's root causes right now that are causing pain, inflammation, postural problems, soft tissue problems. And until you address those root causes, you're not going to be pain-free. You're not going to be functional, as Ryan says. You're going to have problems. So until you're symptom free, you guys, there's root causes that you're missing. If you're symptom free, you've addressed all the root causes. Yeah. And so that's how simple this is, to actually say it's a pain-free blueprint. That's what you get at the end. That's the outcome, pain-free.
And that's, that's why we're so adamant about working only with people who are willing to put the time and effort into actually addressing the root cause. Because again, you can continue to spend tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars on body work. But the reality is, again, you're just going to continue to put that Band-Aid over it. And, I've gone with many, for many years now, which is why I'm at a point professionally where I just don't want to do that anymore, because it's sure I have people coming to me every month, but the reality is, I've given them the tools. They know what they need to do. And, one of my favorite quotes by Tony Robbins is that people are either motivated by desperation or inspiration, right? And I think in body work, it tends to be most desperation. People are so desperate of their current situation that they're willing to put in the time and the money to really finally address the root cause of a problem, so they never have to deal with it again. I mean, there was a time, thank goodness, it wasn't a permanent injury. It actually turned out just being a QL strain, so quadratus lumborum, it's your lumbar muscle. And I strained it. And I remember getting like the most horrendous pain. Like, I didn't even know pain that bad was like a thing. Like, I was just in tremendous pain. And I remember being so desperate to just not be in that pain. And man, I feel for people who deal with, chronic issues, and I think that's something that we also need to say on our end, is that, there are cases where you might actually have, say, a disc bulge, right? Like, we're obviously encourage you to go and get help and medical treatment if that's the case. If you have pain, you need to get that addressed. But as far as what we do at the Pain-Free Blueprint is we teach you how to avoid chronic lifelong pain. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there for people to understand that, hey, if you've got, a disc bulge, or a herniation going on, like, I still believe that soft tissue work and things like that can certainly help, but that's also an area where you might need, more in-depth kind of, advanced help, I guess, with technology for that sort of thing.
Totally. Well, and Ryan, it's kind of like, people address all sorts of medical problems with me and they think it's done because they went to the doctor and they don't have the polyp anymore. It's like, well, hold on. You didn't address any of the root causes. You just put out the fire. Yeah. So 2 points that I see consistently, I can promise you this is the way that it goes. Mm-hmm. One, if you do have a fire and you put it out with a medical community, which that's what they're for, emergencies, right? Unless if you address the root cause, you are just going to repeat that same problem down the line, or it's going to come out in a different problem. Or, if you don't have it that bad, you don't have the bulging disc, you don't have a medical problem, you are on the way to a medical problem if you don't deal with this, because that's where the medical problems come from. They don't happen overnight. They happen after years of chronic imbalances and these same root causes that are unaddressed. So, if you've got a medical problem, deal with it, but then you better get your butt back in gear so that you truly can prevent it and you truly can recover, because there's people that don't recover. That's not what the medical treatment is for. It's just about putting out the fire, not recovering from fire damage. So, you got to actually truly recover function, become symptom-free, pain-free, and it's not a life sentence. And at my worst, that's not my chronic problem, but at my worst, my joints would just pop out of alignment all the time. I would sneeze and 5 ribs would pop out. My neck wouldn't stay in. My shoulder would like pop off. I would look like this. And people would ask me, well, what were you doing? I was walking. Yeah. I wasn't doing anything. I was walking. And I remember being in pain literally from head to toe. It's like sciatica meets MS meets fibromyalgia. I mean, it was bad. I would pass out literally from the pain. And I have a very high pain tolerance. And so, I understand chronic pain and I understand the frustration of not knowing, why is this happening to me? Why is my body not working? And I also understand the pain of having to just blindly trust the chiropractor, this chiropractor, that chiropractor, the acupuncturist, just kind of having to trust that they'll take care of you and hope that it works. That doesn't work. So what I also love about the blueprint is it's so clear cut that there's no hope. I don't have to hope it will work. I understand how it works. And every time I know my root causes and I address them, I get better. So, Ryan, anything you want to add to that before we
Yeah, I would like to wrap up with just one little kind of personal anecdote that in an anecdotal case of a client of mine who he's a cervical oncological surgeon, right? So he deals with, removing cancers in the kind of cervical throat. I don't know. I'm not sure as the details, but anyway, the guy is extremely educated when it comes to kinesiology and anatomy. But it's interesting because, I'm often going over to his home and doing work on him. And it's so funny because I pointed out to him all the time. And so, for example, when he was really young, I don't know what the circumstances were, but he had what's called your subscapularis, which is a muscle, one of your four rotator cuff muscles removed. And it's what allows for this internal rotation of the shoulder. So it was removed when he was like 16 or something like that. So he has extremely limited range of internal rotation. Shoulder. But now here we are decades later, right? And he's got all these lower back problems. And it's really interesting because I remember I hadn't really taken a look yet, but I had a hunch that something would be going on with the right foot, right? Because we talk about the body being in this ping pong pattern, right? And sure enough, his left toes, like the toenails, look very healthy. The right foot, the toenails look very like necrotic and like fungal and just like almost like they're degrading. And it's because it all stemmed from this shoulder. I know that's it because it affected his gait cycle. So that's the thing about the blueprint, right? We're not just saying, hey, sit down on a foam roller and break up some knots. It's like, no, we're teaching you how to coordinate movement in a way that is conducive to actual human functional movement. And that is what happened with him. Not being able to have adequate range of motion in that shoulder had an influence on his ability to stand correctly and swing correctly through his right leg. Therefore, that's what was leading to all the issues he was having in that knee and that ankle. Even the tissue itself was degenerating because it wasn't getting adequate hydration and nourishment from circulation. So anyway, I throw that out there so people understand like the correlation that here's a shoulder problem that manifested all the way down to the opposite foot. So anyway, something for people to think about.
Totally. Well, and I love what you're saying too, because it's like if he would have had these tools then, he could have actually avoided that whole thing by understanding what was happening.
And if I could add, what you said about the medical intervention being putting out the fire. And it's so funny because here's a guy who's, again, a surgeon who literally was telling me that they had to remove someone's tongue and they used the pec muscle. I couldn't believe it. It sounded like science fiction, but they actually used the pec and threaded it through to create an artificial tongue. So now this person has no pec muscle. And then he goes on to tell me, yeah, sometimes we'll remove the lat. And he goes, we don't really need the lat. And I'm like, are you crazy? Of course you need the lat. So, but here's the guy who has no subscapularis, which is completely screwed up his gait cycle, telling people, oh, you don't need a lat, you don't need a pec, you don't need you know what I mean? So again, you get fixed in these kind of paradigms when you go through that kind of academic training. Mm-hmm. And they leave out stuff, and anything outside of that paradigm is woo-woo, hippie, non-science backed information when it's just, it's evident before your eyes. You can see it in people,
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Ryan. And guys, if you want help learning your own blueprint and really stepping up and taking responsibility for yourselves, which responsibility is your power. That's where you get back in the driver's seat of your car and say, I got this, and I'm going to take the car where I want it to go now. To really permanently address these root causes, permanently end the chronic suffering and pain and misalignments and repeated problems, repeated injuries. That's what we're here to help you with. So in the comments below, I'll post a link where you can schedule a free breakthrough call with me. What we're going to do is dive in deep into the symptoms that you have going on and what you've tried and if it's worked and what's been missing the whole time and why you're still suffering, and exactly what you need to do to be able to address what's going on with you and permanently end these problems and take back that power for yourself. So reach out to us, guys, if you have questions. If you know that you're ready to step up and be responsible, like Ryan's saying, learning these tools, applying them on your own, working your chiropractor out of his job, saving that money for yourself, schedule a breakthrough call with us. And if you've got any questions, you guys, post them. If there's something specific you're struggling with or wrestling with that we haven't touched on yet, let us know and we'll do a video on it. And we just wish you guys, truly, we wish you guys health and healing and functionality. And we're so happy and blessed and honored to be able to serve you and teach you guys. So anything else, Ryan?
That's it. Thank you, McCall.
Thanks, guys.